This one's going to be a fun one. Wearing the nose strip. Shout out to Alex Ramosi. Your life hack ended up being a great one for me. So, in honor of you, one of the books that you have mentioned reading was Ready, Fire, Aim by Masterson. And I dove into it, and a lot of the stuff you say makes a whole hell of a lot more sense. So, I hope anyone who is interested in my overview of this will stick around, and we're going to dive in. I've got tabs on tabs here and highlights after highlights. And this has by far been one of my favorite nonfiction reads ever. Maybe because the context feels so relevant and substantial. The content of the book is just like very actionable. I feel like every page deserves its own highlight and its own tab and its own section. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of use this more as an encyclopedia for my business and where it stands now, skipping the parts that either I've passed or are not relevant yet. But I read most of it out of curiosity because though my business goals are more local and focused, being a student of economics and business for as long as I can remember, reading the Wall Street Journal back in being 14, right? So, like, hobby aside, this has been a very impactful read. And let's go ahead and dive in. In the introduction, hanging out with great people. This is my first tab, my first highlight. Great people make all the difference. Once a month, for example, I have a 2 hour meeting with a superstar who has created a growing business that is very profitable with only a minimum amount of input from me. So that like sinks in, leads into delegation, and there's lots to talk about as far as that substance. Among other things, you will learn, page 11 in the introduction, the 4 stages of entrepreneurial growth and primary problems, challenges, and opportunities, the 5 magic wands of business genius, why selling is your first and most important business priority, how to become the top marketer for your business and why it matters, and on and on and on, all the way down to having a plan B is as important having a plan A and when and how to create it, how pushers, thinkers, organizers, and sellers differ from each other, and how to attract the ones you need for your business. And let me tell you, all of this advice is killer good. It's killer specific, and there's no way that you'll get all of it from this overview. So, on the onset, I'm excited about this book, and you should definitely read it through and through, kind of like an encyclopedia for business. The 4 stages of business development. The first stage is starting out, the second stage is fast growth, the third stage is adolescence, and the fourth stage is the maturing stage. I highlighted for a unifying theory of business growth, opportunities that are common to every business. Okay, so yeah, so there's just, things that move society forward, and it's just looking to either fix that for somebody or more. Problems, challenges, and opportunities. And this is where he gets into like what is the majority of the meat of the actual pen to paper numbers like that he's done portion of this book where you can draw all the graphs and all of the visuals from. So but anyway, stage 1 is infancy, stage 2 is childhood, stage 3 is adolescence, and stage 4 is adulthood. And that's really a great way to take a all-inclusive look of the life cycle of a business, why so many of them are so short-lived, and just kind of be a student of economic history and business. So, why employee size matters, chapter 2. This is not only a section that my son thought was awesome, is also very important because the first stage is U plus 7 executives. And so I feel like that 7 number more or less is something I've seen in other successful people in my life who have come before me who are either family members or close friends or acquaintances. They tend to have like that core group of people around them supporting them. And 7 is just a fun number. There's a lot of meaning behind it, I think. And it's well thought out, especially from 7 to 49. I love that as well. Instead of, 9 to 52. Like, why does he get so specific? I highlighted fast growth means problems that have not yet been accounted for. Fast growth means everybody is too busy to solve them. When you are in that fast growth stage, this is like when it becomes key to hire the right people. And how do you do that? And he dives into that really late in the book. Well worth it to get there. There's a big difference between this third tier and second tier, and I think this is just random highlights. You'll have to allow your business to transform itself from the mom and pop sales organization it has been to a professionally run business that crosses its T's and dots its I's. As a sales oriented entrepreneur, you won't like this change because it will seem backward moving in some way, but you will allow it because you are sure that it is needed. And other close friends of mine who are in business for themselves recognize, like, I see them go through this stage and either move past it, attempt to move past it, or stay trapped. Right now, I'm choosing to stay trapped, right? I like this excerpt here, why 100% employee retention doesn't work. Statistically speaking, this says a lot. It's not always, anyway. The very best you can hope for is 75% success rate, and probably only 50%. Some of the mediocre employees will leave voluntarily, whereas some you will have to fire. So just like looking at that, like, in my mind, you just put that in 4 quadrants: 25, 25, 25%, right? Because he's just saying 75 and 50. And that's probably just from him reflecting on a lifetime of doing it and like his round guess. Because like he probably feels like, yeah, about half to a third, stay, but 75% to 50%. I mean, it's just going to be how it is because life, like everything, and he's just drawing on that generalization. And so for me, then I just break that down into 4 quadrants in my mind of like, if you have 4 seasons of your life, are you going to be in the 50%, the 75%, or the 100%? And it's like, if you just work all 4 seasons, you will be the 100% employee retention for yourself, right? And then I don't know how to project that into employees, into a business sense, but the next highlight I have is you will caution them about bureaucratizing the business too much. The fourth stage, from 343 third-tier employees to unlimited growth, highlighted. So if you are smart, you will bring in someone who is good enough and bold enough to help you. Chapter 3, becoming a 5-star business. Genius. I do have lots of tabs here. Actually, coming up with new and useful product ideas, selling those products profitably, managing processes and procedures efficiently, finding great employees to do the work, getting people, procedures, products, and promotions going. On the next page, as this outline indicates, you don't need to know how to create products or motivate people or manage anything to successfully start a business. In asterisks, and he says in chapter 4 and 7, you have to know how to make a sale, number one. What you need are 2 fundamental skills. And number 2, you have to be able to put that sales process into action. And that's it. How good you are determines how many times you do that, how much you focus on that, and how much you obsess on that. Innovation is a rule, not an exception, is another highlight. More professional business with good systems in place. 3 or 4 critical numbers that determine a company's financial health. So it's just getting down to real specifics here. Finding and grooming entrepreneurial executives takes a special kind of skill. And in chapter 7 and 21, he'll tell you how to do that. I like the numbers that I've done so by paying attention to my mentors and imitating some of their tricks. To reiterate, to start a business and keep it growing, you need to be able to correctly identify the most important problem, challenge, and opportunity you face at any given time. In addition to that, you need to become good at 5 basic skills: coming up with ideas, selling products, managing systems, developing superstars, and taking action. That takes us to part 2, infancy, stage 1. He's talking about cash flow, the supremacy of selling. Basically, you have to be good at selling and marketing. Otherwise, you're going to go to, like, he just describes debt as borrowing against the cash flow of the future. Fair. Eliminating most of the other things they are inclined to do, such as leasing office space and buying furniture. Okay, so he's talking about what most entrepreneurs do is they obsess over the things that you should pretty up later, not the sales process. Highlighted sine qua non of business, which is selling the product. As a business owner, selling should be your number 1 priority, and you must act accordingly. You're always on. Business is about providing value to the customer, and that's like so true. Like the sooner you ask, like, what value do I provide to people? What value do I provide to others? And is that service based or product based? Will really help you position your business the way you want it to. So, like, again, like, highly recommend this. Can totally see why this is like probably one of the greatest books of all time. 4 aspects of entrepreneurial success: a seller, an improver, an organizer, and a pusher. During the first 2 stages of growth, the priorities should be in this order: selling, pushing to make sales, improving products and sales, and then organizing. That's interesting. I just had like this immediate reflection of, as I've gotten busier, the organization of my materials has improved so much, but also fallen down the priority list. And so the work there is backing up, and now we're moving forward on that work as things either calm down or I'm getting more experience in time management of like certain things. Like, right, so while we're here, like, that's a great way to remind myself, like, It doesn't have to be organized. We just have to focus on selling, because then we can get time to get money to pay someone to organize and hire someone after like all the key stuff is done. And so highlighting that is the ultimate strength of an entrepreneur, the ability to stimulate sales, great, thus improve our renewal rates. Just probably some wording I like. The result of combining our efforts dramatically increased growth and profitability. This is after he says, I become my boss's chief collaborator and eventually his partner. The result of combining our efforts dramatically increased growth. So you'll hear this from Kiyosaki, you'll experience this in your own life. And what I think what he closes the book with is like what I think he should open it with. But working together is so key to anyone's success. And it's just like combining efforts for a common goal. Marketing genius tip in a little gray box on the side, a former psychologist. He had, as near as I could tell, only one sales technique. Okay, so if someone came in to look at a painting, he'd say, you have a great eye. That one's a real beauty, isn't it? And just basically something to remember is, it's just like, it's really simple. It's just complimenting the other person, but like that's what it is. So great little one-liners like that to use and think about. Rule number 2 of entrepreneurship: percentage of its capital and intellectual resources that are devoted to selling. There's a direct relationship between the success of a business at any given time and the percentage of its capital, temporal, and intellectual resources, right? So devoted to selling. He had exhausted all of his resources building a professional looking site with lots of bells and whistles, but he had never tested his basic sales assumption. So if you can't sell, don't focus on the superfluosities. Do that later. He didn't lease office space. He worked from his home. Okay, and he just went and did sales. He worked fast. He went to auto shops and auto themed events trying to make sales. At first, people were curious and hesitant, and then he made adjustments as he talked to them and the way he presented it. So, and he made these changes rapidly. But at about the 1 year mark, he was able to start pocketing profits, right? And I think I find that so true. You have to have like that sunk cost that you're willing to work through. By devoting his attention to selling first and taking care of the other secondary business concerns later, right? So devoting his attention to selling first, underline. How soon should you start selling in a gray block? The sooner you can make the first sale, the better your chances are of success. In this story is actually a guy named Alex, and his homepage idea, milliondollarhomepage.com, and it took him 48 hours. Inspired by his success, he wrote up a press release about what he had done and sent it to a local radio and television station. So the thing is like you start selling immediately. What are you waiting for? Whatever you have to do to get your name out there, wherever you have to go, whatever you have to do by any means necessary. Because if you have a product that the market wants, or if you have a service that the market doesn't know it needs, etc., there's a way to do it. And there's nothing wrong with going to trade shows or hobbies. I mean, people who like cars are going to go to car shows, and people who like video games are going to go to video game expos. And a big part of this whole thing is target market. So making the first sale is critical for 2 reasons, is the next highlight of mine. You need to create cash flow to keep your business going. And then 2, you will never really know whether your big idea, what marketers call the unique selling proposition of your business, is a good one until you give it the ultimate test in the marketplace. The main thing he should be spending his money on at this point was to find out how much it would cost him to acquire an online client and how much net revenue that client would be worth. That, I said, would cost him about $50,000, not $1 million. He thanked me for my advice, but he didn't take it. Instead, he spent 2 years raising $1 million and then the 3rd year blowing it. Oh well. Yeah, so just practical examples, real life stories of his experience that just really help give perspective. When I am interrupted by someone with a bag full of business ideas, but not a single one about sales. To start anything new, you have to be prepared to put in both money and time. If you put in less money, you need to put in more time. What I told her would apply to almost anyone interested in opening up a retail business, including any sort of store selling merchandise, as well as restaurants, hair salons, day spas, and the like. I highlighted all of them. I'll breeze through them briefly. Don't rush out to sign a lease. Rental contracts are like marriage license. Figure out how to test your basic selling proposition. First, she can rent booths at like flea markets and art fairs. Second, she could advertise on eBay, Craigslist, and other internet-based vendor sites. Third, she could try to wholesale her merchandise to existing retail shops. And I highlighted this part after talking about making distribution deals with retail shops, this may require her to discount her merchandise so severely that there will be little profit in it. That doesn't matter. What she wants initially is to figure out what types of accessories will sell and at what price, right? Like you got to figure out what the marketplace wants if they even like your product. Fourth, she should sponsor office and home-based accessory parties where small groups of women would gather to look at her merchandise and buy what they want in a friendly, low-pressure atmosphere. Purse party, like Sex in the City, that's a great episode, but like totally a thing. Fifth, she could make deals with local restaurants that would allow her to personally model the accessories. Okay, like so maybe and have this exchange for like a commission. If you're able to try out your product line in various venues, you will enjoy three benefits. First, you will discover which of your products sell well. Second, you will learn how to sell. And third, and no less important than the others, you will generate cash that you will desperately need to run your business. So like the most important thing is to go out and sell your product and figure out how to sell your product only or service. Only after you have a good year of experience selling in this way, you will be able to make other less critical business decisions, such as where to advertise and what type of point of purchase displays to have. I highlighted the footnote marketing tip: never unilaterally decide what you want to sell. Find out what the market wants to buy. There's no more important advice than that, especially when starting out. If everything goes well for that year, you will have everything you need to confidently sign a lease agreement. You will know what products to stock your store with and how to price and package them, and you will even have a good idea about where they would sell best. Again, here's what your priorities should be. Start by, and he just lists a lot of things and kind of re-summarizes what he goes over in that chapter. I'm not going to dive into it because you should buy a copy of it. Okay, chapter 5. Your optimum selling strategy and the 4 fundamental secrets of selling your first product. He says, opening up, I hope I have convinced you that when you are starting a new business, selling must be your primary job. And he will remind us this frequently throughout the book, which is great because as an entrepreneur, you, if you're an entrepreneur, always have to remind yourself that that's like the first and most important. Selling is not optional for the stage 1 entrepreneur, it's essential. And if selling is essential, learning to sell is an obligation, not a choice. Personal reflection, that's one of the reasons I read so many sales books, forced myself into uncomfortable positions and situations that felt maybe a little icky and unethical in order to learn certain sales techniques and overcome a fear of going door to door and knocking on doors, knowing that this would be an essential skill to have, treating it like a discipline and a sport and making it through, because door to door sales is like the best way to learn sales. Door to door sales is the best way to learn sales. I mean, I think that's hands down. But that changes. That can change. Stage 1 entrepreneurs should be focused on that, figuring out how to acquire customers in a way that creates cash flow. They are so excited about their product that they imagine it selling itself. They mistakenly assume that one way of selling is just about as good as another. How you sell your product has a huge impact on whether you will be successful. The product is important, but almost never sells itself. And then he is going to dive in, he segues into your optimum selling strategy. Discovering the OSS will make everything that happens afterwards easier. And I'm just going over the highlights. There's so much more context, so much more surrounding this overview. I'm just sharing you what stuck out to me and I think is either important to review or had an impact. All right. And even if you let other people take over the marketing and sales functions, you will be able to guide them as the company grows and help them take advantage of opportunities and avoid potentially damaging mistakes. But by establishing your marketing credentials during the first stage, when the selling secrets of your business are still unknown, you will gain a deep understanding of your business that will serve you well for the rest of your career. If you're serious about it, you're going to be in the trenches and you're going to know the ins and outs. It's the only way you can rise in the ranks of your knowledge. By the time you are done gathering all this good advice, you won't have any better idea about what to do than you did when you started asking. Determine the optimum selling strategy for your business. You need to answer 4 questions that will have a profound impact on how successful you are at developing the positive cash flow your business needs to get to the next level. These 4 questions are: where, what, how. Okay, where are you going to find your customers? What product will you sell them first? How much will you charge for it? How will you convince them to buy it? Your optimum selling strategy. This is a little gray box. The only highlight I have in here is there are hundreds of ways a business can go bad, but only one sure way to make it better. Identify the optimum selling strategy stage of growth that you are in and then focus 80% of your resources on applying it. New customers bring new cash, customer service, fulfillment, and so on. You name it. Once you have the cash coming in, you can hire people to take care of all of the rest. Then he has a couple of pages about the optimum selling strategy, or it's a case study essentially. The ultimate marketing strategies for newbies. My best advice on this matter will not stir or inspire you, but it is my best advice. Do what everyone else is, right? Someone has been there, done that, and you got to, you have to play the video game. You have to go out and, kill the level 1 to 5 stuff. You have to start small, and you have to, get killed metaphorically by bad deals, or coming out on the whatever, because depending on what kind of inventory requirements your business has. And not that I'm in e-commerce or anything, but I imagine like handling returns and damaged goods along the way. I mean, I'm sure that there's all kinds of losses and returns, and things that happen that you have to balance out that you don't quite know about, unless you just like read case studies or something. Then these are all like what goes into basically the 4 things that he listed about, like, how are you going to sell your product, well, where are you going to sell your product, because if you know your customer by selling your product, then you're going to have to deal with different interactions on the back end. From like financial services, there's not a lot of refunds, and so like refunds is never, though, a big part of business discussion, especially on a product over service oriented or contractual agreement, right? And so changing businesses and going into a business that may have refunds, or what are the situations for refunds, and then kind of anticipating all of that. You have to think about all of these things in order to have like the world's best product and advertise it correctly, right? So he goes on to say you can have the world's best product and the world's best copy and the world's best marketing, best price, but if you put your advertisement in the wrong place, it won't work at all. For every single-minded success, there are dozens of single-minded failures, and that rings true, right? Because not every half-brained idea you have, even though it seems like a great idea at the time, is going to be the single-minded success. And you have to focus. Really, you have to obsess over one thing in many ways. I highlighted it is always good. It is always a good idea to send a personal note of thanks, which is very true in my experience. Sending a thank you card right out, handwritten, is just one of the sales techniques that is timeless. I highlight, if you overemphasize cheapness, you will encourage them to think of you as a provider of cheap and therefore inferior products. Highlighted, underlined, holding a position of discounted quality is hard to do. So don't approach your product or your services way, because it's not, because you're striving to be the best. And the bar to compete is low on because you studied statistics and you understand the bell curve. And as long as you try to achieve within like that percentile of 90 to 100%, and just always strive for your best, and knowing that you're always trying to be better and serve and do the right thing and all of that, it all wraps into your quality, your value that you are bringing into what is essentially, right, a base level transaction of either goods or services or contractual agreements. But then on top of that, right, you're not just doing the bare minimum. And holding a position of discounted quality is hard to do, because it's either like a race to the bottom, or it's marginalized into the point of under percent difference. And then at that point, then you're getting into Six Sigma. So why not just ignore all that hubbub until, like, of course you have to scale at some point, but while you're getting started and generating that cash flow, this is what you have to factor in. And so don't just be like the cheapest, because you're not cheap. And there's quality and effort and craftsmanship placed into this. There is love. I mean, there is care, there is service, there is, you know, placement above oneself in the activity that you choose to give to serve others with. Here's a great one. The higher the lifetime value, the more you can afford to spend on each acquired customer, which is another great thing that Hormozy postulated out, in the sense of like it is ethical to charge for your product and charge more for your product or service, right? Because the more you charge, the more you can effectively serve them, right? Because they've given a lot to you, and therefore you can take and have a buy-in with this person. And so, to whom much is given, much is expected, and all of that biblical stuff. Back in pricing, I'm just flipping through here. We're making it into chapter 6, mastering the copy side of selling. 4 key concepts every marketing genius must know, and they're right there. I tabbed them for later, for quick reference. Many first time marketers make the mistake of creating sales campaigns that are logical and rational. Skipped a sentence or two and highlighted, but that won't work for most products because it doesn't do what copy has to do when you are selling once, and that is to stimulate emotions. You have to stimulate emotions. Highlight. I didn't read. You know. We're hoping to arouse in your prospective customer that feeling of irrational exuberance, and you, being a student of marketing, should note when you feel this experience of irrational exuberance and harness it in order to repackage it, right, and use it as your own marketing strategy, because in the beginning do what others are doing. So you should list that deeper benefit I've highlighted on your worksheet, even though it may seem like an exaggeration or irrational. So what is that deeper benefit? That's the thing. What is that emotional? What is that need that it quells? What is that voice that it quiets? And that means positioning it as somehow different from and better than other products of its kind. Does every product have to be unique? It's a gray box. Of course, not every product can or should be unique, but you have to focus on positioning. That's why I think Amazon dropshipping and FBA and all of that is so hard, because like when you don't have the book knowledge to see like what competition looks like, and all of like these basic like economic and business terms that you kind of just learn if you're a student of this game, then you look at it and say like, well, yes, I could be successful at that if I did these actions. And then you start defining these actions and you basically say, yes, I can do that, or no, I can't do that because I've never done it, I don't want to do it, whatever excuse. But it doesn't matter, because you can do anything as long as you just go about it and get information and really just make that choice, do it or not do it. It's just, what contract do you have with yourself, of how hard you want to try, what kind of life do you want to live. There's all kinds of things that you can do a risk analysis, as it were, on. My next highlight is under three aspects of a solid USP: conceptual simplicity. Nothing sells well that is difficult to explain. It's got to be simple. How long does it take to explain, right? Split second, all of this stuff that we know, all of the science and the psychology. Big ideas need to excite you, so start with that and trust your own feelings, right? If you have an idea, what gave you that idea? Why did that inspire you to create a product or service? You got to hold on to that, right? For another book that we just went through, the Go Giver Leader, ideas are easy, holding on to the idea is hard. So how long do you hold that idea? How long do you craft it? How long do you like write down that idea? How long do you spend on that idea? How much do you share it with friends? How exciting does it make you, right? I think it just goes to show that like the more you focus on one, the more you can get from it. And if you choose to have multiple, then that is your choice, then that is fine. But just know that like, it all basically comes down to the same thing for the people who have done it. I tab your cheat sheet for creating your first advertising campaign. It's about 2 pages long, and chapter 17. Secondary yet important priorities for stage 1 businesses. My first highlight, about 2 pages in, his solution was simple. He would ask everybody he could how to do it. This is under mentoring and being mentored, and basically it's a short story about a guy who learns a bunch of stuff by asking everybody how they would do it, how to do it, and all of that. And so he just got a lot of perspectives and a lot of experience and applied it. Here's what he did. I highlighted, he was not afraid to ask questions, even obvious questions. This is great. He had multiple mentors. Also agree. He asked up, down, and sideways. Although his main mentors were experienced business people, people. He had all sorts of temporary mentors, including competitors and his own employees. So again, a lot of this stuff is really deep, and a lot of it is also really reflective. And so again, like, highly recommend reading this. He maintained the relationships by being appreciative. He made his own decisions and took responsibility for them. And these are just highlights of like the first sentence of like big paragraphs. I think they're all important. Often it was some combination of advice he had gotten and some unique twist that came from his own imagination. After making a decision, he took full responsibility for it. If it worked, he gave credit to everyone who had helped him make it. If it failed, he accepted the loss as his. Yeah, and that's just one of those things. Like, yeah, what do you ascribe the credit to? Because, like, so many people who have come before us in the game of business and who have done it and failed and done it and failed and done it and failed and never given up, and the military people who make it possible, and everyone who has sacrificed like for this outcome in this world that we live in. So you got to be appreciative. That's just a lesson from just doing it, and then just a lesson from like the go giver and the go giver leader and experience. Here are some tips to help you do it. Teach instinctively if you have the instinct. Don't make the lessons one sided. You are a leader, but you are not the only one who has insights. Don't limit your lessons to success. When someone makes a mistake, celebrate it as a learning experience. Don't criticize the person. Resist. Okay, and there's so much more here. These are just highlights. Resist the temptation to create a culture of cliques and politics in your company. Man, and he wraps up about that at the end. And I'm telling you guys what, like that. I mean, just like that section alone is worth what this book costs. In what you should look for, avoid, as far as things that will, like really rot your business from the inside out. So I count myself lucky in many ways. Okay, maintaining a good relationship with people of good character is easy too. All you have to do is treat them as you would like to be treated. If you have genuinely good intentions towards them, they will almost always be loyal to you. Asterisk. Footnote, the goodwill that you develop will accrue interest over time. This is a subject that is so important it merits its own chapter. I don't have time for that in this book, but trust me on this. Okay, this is like in the middle of the book almost, and it's a footnote. And it's probably like one of the most important messages in this book. Setting business targets. The purpose of business should not be, and this is important, to make you or your employees rich. It should not be the main objective, asterisk. And he says, I know many business experts will disagree with me, and in that case, my critics will include very successful entrepreneurs. I know from my own experience that setting financial targets for business does work and can be helpful, but I don't believe achieving those targets should be your company's main purpose. The purpose you talk about as a leader. And that purpose is very important because that purpose, right, is that idea, that thing that you've held on to. The next highlight, I don't want them focused on making their boss rich, and I don't want them focused on making themselves rich either. Though your top priority has been selling in stage one, creating happy customers should always be the primary focus of your company's work. And that is so true because that pervades many cultures as well. And it's just like placing the client, the customer above yourself, and always striving to do that in the best way possible. On the next page, so though your primary focus should always be on customer service, your quantifiable goal as a stage one entrepreneur should be to acquire as fast as possible what we call a critical mass of qualified customers. I think you'll hear this a lot of like 1,000 true fans type of deal. It's just kind of one of those law of large numbers. And this is just his definition of it. Your CMQC, the number of loyal customers you need in order to make all or most of your subsequent selling transactions profitable. If your primary objective, customer satisfaction, selling more products to existing customers who enjoy the prior buying experience with you will be relatively easy, as well as cheaper and therefore more profitable. But the most important thing he did was remind us of something we had learned and forgotten. This concept of working towards reaching a critical mass of qualified customers. In a recent email to me, and he goes on, he's got the story, and it's great. When you hit your CMQC, by marketing at your allowable acquisition cost, you will have reached a major financial milestone. And this feels kind of like real to me because I feel like once you get those repeat clients and the transactions are either bigger or frequent or whatever, it's like this. It is a milestone financially. It does bring you to the next level, and you feel it, and that leads you to the next stage. Best of all, by not making revenues or profits your main business objective, you can train yourself and your core team to focus on the most important thing, which is growing a business that provides great products slash service to a growing base of happy customers. Service is hard to scale. I'll tell you what. Chapter 8, a quick review of the problems, challenges, and opportunities faced by the stage 1 entrepreneur. Usually more effort than anticipated. Every he just says, I have had the good fortune to be involved with literally hundreds of new products and business startups, and every single one of them took effort, usually more effort than anticipated. And this is so true. And I mean, just to piggyback on what Alex Ramosi would say, is if you have that business ADD and you go from one thing to the next every 2 years, you're just increasing that amount of work instead of if you just stuck with it. At the end of the process, your business plan may look quite different from the one you started with. That's the way it should be. What matters is success. A major tab and highlight. Here are some of the most important ideas that I want you to take away from this book to help you become a product selling genius and master at starting a new business. Don't waste your time on corporate marketing. Don't wait. Okay, and he has it's 4 pages of bullet points, so I'm not going to go into all of them. The highlights are: you can upgrade your business lifestyle later, after the company is profitable. Most people who are out there peddling ideas have never started a single business except for the business they started when they started giving advice. Don't attach your ego to any idea or product idea, and attach your confidence to the process, not the outcome. However successful you become, never be ashamed to ask for advice. Don't ever believe you know more than the market. And it's just more bullet points, not going into it, but we're going to go ahead and get into stage 2. Part 3, stage 2, adulthood, chapter 9, from 1 million to 10 million and beyond. Lots of stories in here. Talking about the nature of the company, equity, how to double your revenues again and again and again. Some personal experience, which is stage 2, growth. I've tabbed entrepreneurial axiom, which I will read. The primary factor in stage 2 growth is the development and marketing of new products. The faster you can develop and sell those new products, the faster your business will grow. An easy, if flawed way to create new products, hitting the stage 1 plateau. If it works well, do it again, getting to 80 million. And it's just like this step-by-step process, and it's fantastic, and you should buy the book. Chapter 10, innovation, the key to second stage growth. What's wrong with knockoffs? I have tabbed and highlighted: to be consistently successful, you have to anticipate the market, not follow it. After he does say in a previous chapter, the market knows best, but you do have to try to anticipate it. Anyone who makes good investment decisions, right, they absorb the information available, and then they anticipate what's going to happen next, and either it pays off or it doesn't. Right, when you invest with either SpaceX or Tesla, you're anticipating that Elon Musk may get us to Mars, and that's what he's selling, and that's the brand that he's selling, and you're investing in that idea. You're anticipating that this will happen. And then if not, if you anticipate something else, you look in those companies, right? Like, that's why you have whole industries, and why so many people say, just buy an ETF, because you could either focus on the drama of an industry and get really specific, and all of that. The time that you put in is you get out what you put in, and the more you focus, right, and the more you anticipate, you just have to always do what you can to stay on top. Next page, in praise of Malcolm Gladwell. You can't dictate to the market. You must let the market tell you what to do. All of the very successful product launches I've been associated with were, I realize now, evolutionary, not revolutionary processes. And all of the big failures, the product launches that lost more than $500,000, were brand new ideas that the market had until that point shown no interest in. Who else do we know talks and says, may evolution forever be in your favor? This guy, Ray Dalio, and he's one of the most successful hedge fund managers of all time. And it's about the evolution, the iterations, the critiquement of those iterations, the evolution of your sales process, right? Evolution isn't just subject to physical, it is also your mental capability to evolve and step to the next level, to change what works for you and all of that. And you're not a revolutionary is what I'm hearing, right? It's like, I'm no revolutionary. I simply know that there is a way to create a business around the life that I want to have, and so I went after. Does that mean I have to make sacrifices here and there? Yes, absolutely. But the dream life is what 99% of people want, but 99% of people aren't willing to do the work. Maybe it's, many people. We're not going to put percentages on it, right? Because we can all work hard. My formula for creative brainstorming is tabbed. Basically, the number three is there, which is cool. Right? Three is a great number. We all know that. Hopefully, we all know that. Not all change related stress is bad. That looks like it would be a great little block of read. Oh, he points out in the 4 Hour Work Week, Timothy Ferriss does, there is a difference between good stress, which he calls eustress, and bad stress, which he calls distress. I've not done like a highlight tab review of this, and I haven't read it in many years. The tabs are so old. I should do that again. Drop in the comments if you made it this far in the video and you've either read 4 Hour Work Week or would like to hear my tabs and highlights on it. Oh, he's got a 24-hour rule for preserving the inspiration of genius. Chapter 11, Speed, putting ready, fire, aim into your business. Money Loves Speed is a tab. It's a great paragraph. Faster testing means more products, which means more profits. And so, based on the way, I've never experienced this personally within my business because I don't have products and I'm nowhere near here in revenue, but you can hear it in people who are experienced. There's correlations. So just know this book is great. How to Increase Speed, a case study, a lot of stuff I've highlighted and tabbed. How BB explains accelerated failure. Because we are fallible, we must accept failure as part of the process. By accelerating our failures, we can also accelerate our successes. And I can't say that I thought that thought exactly, but I have been taught to fail forward and to try and try again and to fail forward. And all I can say is that from my own experience, that is a true line. Chapter 12, Getting Ready. Action creates reality. I put a special tab on that because like action does create reality. I think other than my quote by Melinda Gates, the sticky note that says make a list. It just reminds you to like do the thing to check that off. All right, I'm skipping a lot of pages here to get to chapter 13. What are you waiting for? Start firing already, right? Like this is why this book takes so long to get through, because every time you read something, you find something actionable and you do it. And so it's actually really hard to sit here knowing that I do have a business that needs attention. That's okay though. This is a passion project. Profile and courage. I dog-eared this page. Anyway, it's Susan's story and it's fantastic. Chapter 14, Aiming the Product. A couple pages in, I've highlighted treat your customers as you like to be treated when you are a customer. Oh man, and it's just like it's just really true. And you have to, and you'll realize like the higher up the client chain you go, you'll realize like why things get to where they're at and why you'll just like you have to hold yourself in high esteem and love yourself in order to love your customer, because you want these experiences and so do they, and you have to live that basically in your business. And so that's why it creates the ultimate ethical promise, and why it is such a good reminder that we are in service to something greater than ourselves, and that is to each other and the betterment of everything, because we are right on the shoulders of titans trying to preserve what generations have brought into being. Orders have a different code of conduct when it comes to customers, the rule of gold. The less I give to customers, the more I will have left for myself. And he just kind of, talks about like how that's like not only wrong, but stupid. I know I can make more money more easily by following the golden rule. And if I share more, more will be shared with me. True, very true in my experience, very true from what I've seen in those who I consider successful in my life, whether it be coaches or uncles or other people who are highly successful. They are great givers. Spend a good deal of time asking, how can we make this better? Another highlight, engage in a program of incremental improvement. Another highlight, incremental improvement is an ongoing process. Incremental improvement, right, is important. I've got this widget from my grandfather who engineered this a long time ago, and it can be made better. It can be engineered better, and there's just a few things about it that need to be rectified, and this can be like a fantastic product. Very versatile, but difficult to explain, I guess. So anyway, it's not going to stop me from trying. Chapter 15, Aiming the Marketing, Part 1, a quick crash course. Lots of highlights. As a CEO, revenue and profits are your job, even if you don't handle them directly. You don't have to be your company's main salesperson, but if you are not, you have to be the full-time pusher of your salespeople. Myth number 1, it is good to sell things that people need, like grain and milk, but it is bad to sell things that people don't need, like TiVos and gambling vacations. The reality, More than 90% of what people buy is based on wants, not needs. Business buying decisions are made not because we believe it will enhance our business lives. They are made out of want. Myth two, it is good to sell things as long as you don't charge more than they are worth. What does value mean is reality. Got to define your value. You've got to know your worth and know your value and know the service. Myth three, it is good to make good things better, but it is bad to sell them. Reality, give me a break. This brings us to the golden rule of marketing genius, which is don't be ashamed of doing to thy neighbor that which you secretly want done to you. If you this is like what was instilled in me when I was a bellman at a four diamond hotel. Just you have to go above and beyond. You have to bring the magic. You have to be a creator of magic. And everybody can do that. You can. Sell your product to more people, sell more products to your customers, charge more for the products you sell, which is this is under step two, shooting revenues through the roof with three basic approaches. Good customer service involves only three things: knowing what your customers really want, finding out how you can do that for them, and talking to them about what you are happy to recognize. What your customers really want is the first and most important step in providing great customer service. Deeper emotional needs that can never be completely satisfied. It allows you to service not just the superficial ones, but so the emotion, right? You're selling based on the emotion. And I mean, solving emotional needs is a huge thing. Step three, a crash course in sales and marketing. It just says take an hour to study the following crash course. Lesson one, your customers don't care about you or your business, they care about themselves. Very true. Lesson two, a small portion of your customer base is giving you the lion's share of your corporate profits. Lesson three, understand why your customers buy from you. Lesson four, almost every sales transaction begins with the process of generating leads. And five, learn multi-channel marketing. On to 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 and 13 up to 17. And I have highlights through all of these. The first element is the big idea. The second element is the big benefit. The third element, the big promise. And the fourth element is the proof. This is under the secret of the four-legged stool under lesson 7. So, just that alone in a book that's only 300 something pages long, worth the time that you put into reading it. Aiming the marketing part 2, understanding the buying frenzy, a lot of good stuff. Talks about it's got case studies. When is the buying impulse strongest? It says, I have done a good deal of thinking about this over the years, and I have come to the conclusion that there are 3 factors that stimulate buying frenzies. In him, this is his personal reflection on why he buys, which is a great exercise to go through. Having the feeling that I have more money than I need, being exposed to psychologically effective selling signals, good feeling I get from buying. Each of these reasons has important implications for the savvy business person. And he just goes in and talks about it and just lays out some numbers. And it's just a really great case study and personal reflection. And you need to read it. How to stimulate a buying frenzy. And I've tabbed it, and it's like a page long. I'm not going to read it here. Chapter 17, ready, fire, aim, and action. You have a personal goal, ready, fire, aim to create a second income, to produce an album. It's applicable everywhere, essentially, and I find this very. Chapter 18, a quick review of the problems, challenges, and opportunities faced by the Stage 2 entrepreneur. And he gives a recap of a couple of pages. Part 4, Stage 3, Adolescence. Chapter 19, Making the Stage 3 Transformation. And I think this is really where a lot of the meat comes in when he does talk about the transformation, because he's just writing from experience. Like, he is telling you what he had to do time and time again. He's just telling you his experience. And so take it for what you will and adjust it, right? Like the young man who asked questions and gained so much knowledge in a short amount of time and then put his own unique twist. How to change your business the right way. Tab it because it's important to reference. He lays a lot of stuff out, which brings us to chapter 20. Changing into a corporate leader. I've got a lot of highlights. Man, I've got blocks of highlights. You have to learn to love both numbers and also the people who love numbers. Running a growing Stage 3 business takes at least 6 skills that are not needed to start and grow modest-sized entrepreneurial business. Those are controlling operations, managing managers, communicating your vision, networking for joint ventures, negotiating deals, being good at hiring. That's the outline. And then he talks about controlling operations, which I highlighted a couple of paragraphs down from the opening, answering the question of what is an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs do not make good employees. They don't like working for other people. They don't like following directions, and they're unhappy with their compensation no matter what it is because they believe they could be making more if they were on their own, running their own business. Hello, world, and that is okay. So long as it is suggested and not dictated. And just know if you're the entrepreneur, you can't really hire other entrepreneurs, and that's okay. Best of luck. We need more entrepreneurs. Managing your managers, I've highlighted several paragraphs down. To run a business that has 100 or 500 or more employees, you have to be willing to let your managers make the management decisions. You tell them what you want done, but you let them figure out how to do it. Never correct your managers in front of other people. Recommend a more formal approach, sending out regular letters to all of your employees to update them on major changes in the business and upcoming plans, and explaining how these changes and plans reflect your overall vision. Tabbed and highlighted that because I need to do that or help somebody do that. And every once in a while, try a personal handwritten note to your key people, which again, something I like to do. How to write a great business memo is highlighted and starred, but you'll have to buy the book to find out what it is. My rule for joint venture deals is that I'd rather be the screw-e than the screwer. I don't make deals that put me in a position to lose money, but I am happy to break even if it makes my joint venture partner happy, because I know that the more happy partners I have, the more good deals will come to me. Very important truths about the art of a good deal. A good deal is one that lasts. A good deal goes bad for one partner, it goes bad for the other one. It is almost impossible to hold a partner in a bad deal if he really doesn't want to stay with it. Legal words on paper have their value, but the value lies in protecting you from getting screwed, not permitting you to screw your partner. What is fair isn't a single point, it's a range. Trying to get exactly what you want is a childish game. Situations change over time, partners do too. Fairness shifts accordingly. Sense of fairness. Another great benefit of this simple approach is that nobody ever thought of BB, who he talked about earlier in the book, as a good negotiator. So people came to him frequently with deals. That was because he is, after all, not a good negotiator. The one final benefit that he enjoys from this technique, as far as I know, nobody has ever made a deal with him, has ever said anything bad. And that just reinforces just so much, just a cascade of thoughts just hit my head. Of like a psychological trick of saying something the wrong way, mispronouncing it as a way to get a question answered, is that, right? Is you have a fairness about you. Chapter 21, filling your stage 3 business with stars and superstars. To find extraordinary people, you have to take extraordinary measures. And man, he gives the dream example of what is good and what is great as far as ads to seek superstars. He breaks down the two, which I'm not going to read the two ads because they're both short and long. But basically, the first one asks for a resume, better asks for a letter. What this does is it weeds out the ordinary people who are too lazy or unimaginative to write a letter. That's why a cover letter is important. And I will say, writing a cover letter to something, and you should not require a cover letter as an employer, because the people who do write the cover letter are going to naturally, okay, anyway, we get it. Great employees understand that their main concern should be how much they can do for the business, not how the business can take care of them. Okay, so that's what great employees do. They have a purpose, and they know that your business fills a purpose or need of theirs. Very good and great people. You do not need to seek them out. They will come to you. The care and feeding of celestial employees. Great. Celestial employees. Guess I have gotten some before. Myth number 2, employees are always motivated by money. It's naive to think. The reality, he says, is money is not even the second most important motivating force for very good people. Very good and great employees are motivated primarily by the opportunity to become more than they are, which I think is one of the reasons, they are either entrepreneurs running their own thing, or wanting to make some kind of change in the world. Reality, fun comes from doing good work. And I do find this true, right? I do legitimately like working because it is kind of fun. It is honing. It's I don't know. It's just everyone has it. Everyone has work. It's craft. Right? If you don't work, you don't eat. If you don't get up out of the cave and go hunt your food, you don't eat. Right? So everyone works in some way. They have a purpose, and we just have a beautiful world where we can craft a purpose of our own and make it into a reality because of how blessed we are. Doing otherwise is unfair to the other employees, and especially unfair after every enterprise can have only one primary purpose, and it should be to improve the lives of its customers, not its employees. From the reality of mixing business with friendship is always a bad idea, and it is kind of true. And putting your employees, you don't want to look like you're playing favorites or anything like that, because at the end of the day, you're serving one purpose, and that is the client, the customer, person who's requiring your service. And so at the end of the day, the great employees will be able to put that above and beyond. The bottom line is this is brick highlighted for me. The best and easiest way to grow your business from 10 million to 50 million to 100 million and beyond is to fill it with very good and great employees and turn those very good and great employees into stars and super. The way to create stars and superstars is to create as much upward mobility as possible in your business so that your employees can achieve what all good employees really want, to exercise their talents as fully as they can, doing something that matters. Happiness comes from working hard and well at something we care about. If you want your employees to work happily, and you should, you have to communicate your vision of growth and customer service, and then give them the chance to realize that vision by working hard and well in an environment of limitless responsibility. And I think a lot of great organizations kind of are built around that. And there's things that, like do kind of try to seep in and corrupt. And he goes into how to avoid those. And I think that, there are good systems and obviously not, right? So it all depends on what your purpose is. In other words, people are hardwired to think in differing time spans. Most feel comfortable looking forward only a day or two. Some can look months ahead, but those who can see years in the future are very few. Chapter 22, Bottlenecks, Bureaucracy, and Politics. This is a great chapter. There's a lot to highlight in here. He lists the primary viruses that affect stage 3 businesses. And then I highlighted further down, I had to accept finally that it was a natural, inevitable phase of growth. They are destructive bugs to be sure, but they can be exterminated. Number 1, bottlenecks. Let's define our terms. Who also likes defining terms, right? It's important to. Bottlenecks are people or procedures that slow things down. And then he will go on to say that, like, you are the bottleneck, right? You are the bottleneck of your own business, and that's true in many ways, and you have to accept that. And he goes into like explaining like how to accept that, and that's why he gives you all of this great information about how to hire and how to scale and what to do. And then he said, bureaucracy is any system or protocol that exists independent of the core purpose of the business. And politics is the destructive dynamic that results when people pay more attention to power than profit. Those are the three. I kind of highlighted for fun. There are regulations and red tape and black and white processes every industry is plagued by that are obscure, overlapping, and even contradictory. Sometimes you will run into this contradictory stuff, and you just have to just figure out a way through it. So the invisible bottleneck is listed here, and it says get out of the way. And then he closes with ask them, and basically the story parable is like ask your employees, like, what can I delegate or stop doing entirely that would make your lives easier or the business run faster? So in order to be able to ask that question, you have to hire the right employees and have the stars and superstars in place to ask that question too. Bureaucracy. A couple of paragraphs in, I highlight start by establishing and promoting a culture of efficiency. Remind your managers that you are all working in the service of your customers. Ask them to help the business do a better job. Explain that every unnecessary action that is performed in the business is taking away something good that can be given to the customer. Tell them that the systems and procedures that have been set in place are there to speed up and improve things, but that sometimes systems and procedures become obsolete, and ask them to help you identify these obsolete practices so that you can replace them with more efficient ones. It's great advice. And he talks about Buddy, who was a senior manager and just is a great friend, but was a little too much. And got a great story about that. Office politics. Usually, bureaucrats can be mean spirited, but they're just overly enthusiastic organizers who lose sight of their role in the business. But office politicians are much worse. They are people who harbor very bad and destructive ideas about how to get ahead. If you don't root them out of your business, they will destroy it. He goes on to say, I have difficulty liking any political act because it is fundamentally flawed. Politics is based on power, and power, as we know, corrupts. Not all politicians are evil, some are just plain naive. I highlighted a lot here because a lot of this echoes one of the main reasons that you don't focus on politics and you kind of see it as this low-level playing field on the 3D chessboard that is life. Not all politicians are evil, some are naive. When your idea of doing good in the world is based on the presumption that you need to have power over other people so that you can do it, well, to think that way, you either have to be naive or fundamentally evil. Politics is, in many ways, he says, the opposite of business, and in almost every comparison, it is inferior. Politicians can't start doing good until they get their power, and this highlight that I'm about to say is so important. Business people can't get their profits until they do their good. They understand the fatal flaw of politics. They know that the best government is that which governs least. talking about our founding fathers, and I think that's very important. One that governs least. They are not forced to buy your idea of what is good. They are free to ignore it. If you are wrong, you realize, unless you're a foolish business person, that the idea you thought was good is actually bad, so you stop it and the world goes on. Highlighted and tabbed because you can't take it personally and the market is the winner. That profit, assuming it is honestly delivered, is the measure of the good you've done. And that's why profit is so important in a business. It forces everybody to pay attention to the ultimate purpose of the business, which is providing benefit to its customers. Starred, highlighted. And he talks about there's more bad than good businesses. The first is based on avarice and stupidity. The second is foolishness and greed. And I think that those, man, it's great. This book is full of so many wise nuggets. Worrying about market share when what they should be doing is helping you create and sell new ideas to benefit their customers. Fundamentally, the political life is an unhappy one. Here are some signs of the political personality, and he goes on to list them. The solution to politics, I highlight because politicians are very good at rationalizing their power plays. A better way to destroy the spread of this cancer is to destroy the environment in which it operates. That environment is control. The opposite of control is freedom. The ultimate solution to politics is freedom. The more freedom you establish in your business, the more difficult it will be for politics to thrive and spread. He goes on to define why. Chapter 23. A quick review of the problems, challenges, and opportunities faced by the Stage 3 on Stage 4, Part 5, Adulthood, the last big change. Chapter 24. Statistically speaking, I highlighted it because that just says a lot. Like, statistically speaking, law of large numbers, you have to study the statistics. The statistics, you'll understand. Stepping back and becoming chairman of the board. He talks about Richard Sheffrin, one of his colleagues, about entrepreneurial roles and how they change. And he says he attributes part of it to Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant and Michael Gerber's The E Myth. And they are basically 4 different roles that entrepreneurs must play depending on the stage of their development that their businesses are in. Anyway, so I just highlighted that because I want to look at this Elliot Jocks and this Michael Gerber and the E Myth and this book, Requisite Organization. Role 1, the employee. Role 2, the manager. Role 3, the business builder. And I've highlighted a big block in the business builder. This you may have been doing on an informal basis since the beginning, but back then it was easier. I probably highlighted it because of that, because just reminding myself that it is easy in the beginning, and that's a fun place to stay. You were working person to person with a handful of people. You knew your thinking as they knew you as well as you did. Expressing your vision was a simple matter of informal and even impulsive comments randomly put. Now you can't do that. To make sure your ideas are understood, you've had to become adept at formal communication modes. You may not need to be an expert at public speaking, but you certainly have to know how to write a persuasive memo and express yourself forcefully at meetings. And this is just like a kind, gentle reminder that, like, knowing my personal personality type, knowing how I am and generally reserved, this is just like the nice reminder that I do have to step into that role of galvanizer from time to time. I may not like it and it's going to feel icky, but it will have to be done. The wealth builder, role 4, you will have to look at your company the way an outside investor would. You will have to determine what the company is worth now and whether that worth is increasing. As the major shareholder of a Stage 4 business, you will have to figure out the return you get on the time and money you put into it and compare that to the return you are getting on other investments. As a wealth builder responsible for the increasing wealth of your employees and vendors, you will have to occasionally ask yourself frank questions about the value of the business. You will be less passionate about your business as a wealth builder, but you will have the discipline to see your business as others might see it, right? You can't be emotional about your own business. I have many things to say on that from personal experience, but I do think that being able to step back, analyze the situation, look at it from a different perspective, whether it's your business, where you're standing in the moment, what city you're visiting, who you're with, who you're around, what party you're at, if you have the ability to step back and look at yourself, the situation as an outsider, measure that against your personal ethics and values. The more frequently you do that, the more success you will have. And you have to not be passionate about it, right? You have to take that emotionless view. And it is a sacrifice in many ways. Now is the time to reassess the role you want to play. We're closing out, right? The last big change. While a business is growing, there's always too much. If you are flexible enough to change roles when you need to, you will always enjoy your work, because it will be new and challenging and, most important, meaningful to your business. And so that's like the metric of knowing, having built and failed with businesses in the past, that like you're not passionate about it, it's not going to work. You be adaptable. You have to all of these things, right? Notice that working hard is not one of the things. Hard work isn't working hard, but differently, work doesn't become hard simply because I work hard on it. So redefining work, what is new and challenging is always interesting. And then I highlighted that he sees a pattern. He said, I see a pattern. Which one of these days, we're gonna go through this little notebook from a couple of decades, right? I've got patterns written right there on the very front because of me maybe noticing them when I was 19 and then wanting to trace that and track that. And in this book and other books, you hear a lot about the patterns. And I think that there's the logical fallacy associated with it of humans see patterns, but also math is a beautiful pattern and creates beautiful patterns in and of itself. Let's continue with the highlighting. Select the one who has the best ability to promote sharing and cooperation. Wealth builder seeking out joint adventures, making acquisitions, and or planning for divestiture. This can be a very worthwhile way to spend your time and a lot of fun. Chapter 25, acting as your company, playing the advisor role I have highlighted. He talks about Warren Buffett. Wealth building is about adding value over time. And that pretty much closes out the book. I do have the last sentence highlighted. Basically, agree with this. What are you waiting for? If you've made it this far, stop the mental masturbation, get out there, start building your own business, right? That's what he closes with. He says, starting and owning your own business is and always will be the best job in the world. Don't settle for any other. And so I say to you, what are you waiting for if you haven't? And if you're in the middle of any of this, then let me know what you thought about this book because this book is phenomenal. Drop in the comments below. Would love to see some reaction videos to different parts about what parts you agree with, or maybe you have a different experience from Michael Masterson and you want to share your business experience. He closes with a story of Belinda Mulrooney and how she made her money because of the gold rush. She never intended to pan for gold. Her plan was to become wealthy by selling products and services to the gold seekers. So, knowing that and reading that book and closing with that story by Belinda, what are people selling? And are you a gold seeker or are you an entrepreneur or a business person, right? Because so many people do seek gold in the form of, right, a paycheck or chasing something or for whatever reason. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What should matter and will always propel you to success is that service, right? Making sure the product is the best thing, serving your clients, serving your customers, and doing what's in their best interest as if you were serving yourself to the highest order.